Yo, what's up guys? Welcome back to another tutorial. Today we'll actually be talking about some of the top things I've learned over the past 3 to 4 years, probably 3 years of doing coaching with some of the top artists in the melodic bass or future bass genre. So just to kind of give you a little bit of background, I've been doing music production for about a little over 5 years now, and I started taking coaching lessons from various different artists back in year 2 of my music production journey. So I first started with Miles Away, who coached me for about a year, and then during that time period, I also had coaching with Caslow, or mainly Natali from Caslow, who's now ventured off to do his own music brand named Venteria or something like that. I'm not too exactly sure how to say it, but he's no longer part of Caslow anymore. And then I also had some coaching with one of my friends, who I have a collaboration with Monica Santucci, which is my upcoming track, and I'll be sharing that track with you guys in this video as well. And I also had coaching from Nurko for about 8 months, or a little over 8 months, and then for the next 2 years or so I had coaching with Chris from Culture Code, or also known as Sound Horizon Academy, for his music production brand. So yeah, pretty much I've spent well over $15,000, as the title says. Probably I'm not even gonna be surprised if I even reach the $20,000 mark. I just know that I spent a lot on it, and so it's probably around the $15,000 to $20,000 range. So I wanted to share some of the things that I learned over the past 3 years, so that way you guys can, maybe learn from some of my mistakes that I made, or maybe take some of the things that I've learned over the past few years and apply to your music production, so you can learn a lot faster than I did. So yeah, let's get right into it. So tip number 1 is as simple as just lowering the chords down an octave. So this is literally the same exact chord progression that Alinium used in a lot of his older tracks, like his remixes and stuff. And this is like one of my favorite go-to chord stacks, and because I just really like the emotion that it feels, because I really resonated with it when I make my tracks. And for some reason, I just couldn't make it sound as sad. And usually I would write it an octave too high, basically. So that's basically the tip. It's like just lowering your chords down an octave could potentially make your song sound a lot more sad. Now it also kind of depends on, how the melodies are harmonizing together as well as the vocal that you have, as well as the sound choice and all that, which can all contribute to the emotion that you're going to evoke. Because even if you have a sad chord progression, that definitely sets the foundation of the mood. The melody could still sound a little bit happy. But yeah, we'll go ahead and focus on the chord progression. So this is the chord I have. It's basically, we're in the key of F major. Oh, one more thing to note as well is that I wouldn't be too stressed about looking in terms of major or minor, because essentially the relative minor of a major key shares the same keys as the relative major. I don't know the exact names of it, but basically the relative minor and the major key, they all share the same keys. So I wouldn't be too worried about writing in that minor or major key, and I'd be more focused on what emotion the chord progression evokes, as well as how are the melodies harmonizing with that chord to evoke that emotion that you're looking for, is what I would be focusing on instead. So yeah, this is the chord here. This is a 2, 4, 1, and 5. So I'm gonna change it to C just to make it a little easier, and then we'll move it back to the F key. Okay, so 2 would be the D minor in the C major key. 4 would be the F major, C would be the 1, C major chord, and then this is the 5, which is the G major chord. So I'll move that back to F now, and this is what it sounds like. So yeah, it's a very emotional chord progression, but it's not exactly evoking the feel that I want. So, because usually what I would do with my chord stacks, I would always write in this like octave. So let me kind of give you a better example of what my chord stack would look like. So it already sounds really good, but I really want like a dark feel to it. So literally, all you really have to do in this case, at least, is just move it down an octave. That's exactly the feel I'm looking for. And that literally just blew my mind, because for the past like 3-4 years I've been writing an up an octave, and I was like, why isn't it evoking the certain feel that I'm looking for? And that could be a potential trick that you can try using. And like I said, you also, it really depends on also the melody that you're writing on top of the chords, and the sound choice too is really going to help. And on top of that, you may notice that these chords are, rather than playing a bar, they're actually doubled, so that also evokes that slower emotional feel. And then even on the piano, we have strummed notes. I think on Ableton 12 you can do this automatically, or they have some type of built-in thing where you can automatically strum it. I don't know, I don't have Ableton 12, this is Ableton 11, but that might be a really cool feature you can do on Ableton 12. And then I also randomized, well, not in this case, but I think I manually changed the velocity of each piano to humanize it. And then all I really did was just have some reverb, and then added the utility plus 10, or plus 8 rather, because it's very quiet if I don't have this. Yeah. So now we have the foundation of creating a very sad song. Now we can add more elements to make it even more sad. So here we go, talking about the melodies that you can incorporate. This is a really cool trick too, is that if you have a really good vocal and you're just literally using this original chord progression of the vocal, most likely like the first notes of the vocal that you're going to use for this atmosphere trick I'm about to show you will work really well. So this is the, maybe I don't want to play this vocal actually, it's I don't want to get copyrighted strike on my video, but this is a vocal from Chris from Culture Code, or Sound Horizon Academy's track called Crying You Out. And this is the same exact chord progression and the same exact key. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put an atmosphere rack on this. And basically all this rack has is a Valhalla Supermassive. It's a free reverb plugin, so I definitely recommend for you to download it if you don't have it yet, as well as a Valhalla Shimmer, and then an OTT after the Shimmer to actually extend the reverb. Let me just kind of show you. Yeah, and then, yeah. And then also kind of like a phony cue here basically going on. So kind of going back to that trick that I showed you, or was talking about, we can literally most likely just take out the first note of each part, and that will make a very good sounding atmosphere. So let's try this. I think the reason being is because number one, this vocal is really good, and number two, it already harmonizes really well with the chords, so it should work. So let's go ahead and try that with the piano chords. Yep, and then try this one. Yep, and then maybe we can take this one here. And then maybe we can take that last one right here. Let's try it out. Then you can just duplicate it, and now you have a really cool kind of intro atmosphere sound. All right, we can move over to tip number 2 now, which is something I learned from Matali, as well as my friend Amadeus. But you can literally, when you write your chords, the safe notes in the chord is a 1 and 5 of the major key. So let me show you an example real quick, and then we'll go ahead and write the same double. And then I'll write it in C just so it's easier to translate. So we can do C major. So this is the 1 and 5 of the key. So the reason why I know that is because the C major key has all white notes, and the 1 is the C, 2 would be the D, 3 would be the E, 4 would be the F, and then 5 would be the G. So usually, if not all the time to be honest, the 1 and 5 is a safe bet in writing your melodies, writing your chords. You can literally just have these drawn out the whole entire way. I used to write my melodies that way, like where I would start with the 1 and 5, but now I go more towards what sounds good. So it might be a good starting point, but I wouldn't just rely on the 1 and 5 thing. I would kind of rely more on what sounds good to me and what the melodies that I'm looking for. But yeah, just to kind of give you an example, here's a 1 and 5. This is just an Alinium saw that I always use as in my, like all my stacks and all the videos that you've watched. Is I got it from Alinium's tutorial on his Lonely stream on Twitch, I think it was. But I'll just kind of show you it real quick. 2 saw waves, some chorus EQ, and then a tri-saw, and some white noise. That's about it. And then I just turned off the ARP for now, right here, and just turn it off because it's playing the 8th notes. Okay, so back to this. So I'm actually going to show you the chord progression I wrote for, or actually Jasper wrote, or Amadeus wrote for our upcoming track. So it's this one here. I forgot to mention that I also set this video up, or set this up for my video, just to have some like basic drum pattern with the kick and snare, and side chain on the top. So as you noticed, the whole entire way we were playing the 1 and 5, the key, and it just sounded good in context. So we'll play it again. So yeah, literally, it works all the time. As long as you're writing in the major key and you're doing the 1 and 5, the major key, it should work every single time. And let me just build this out more a little bit real quick. All I really did was I just added the 5th of the chord, so you just move that 77 up. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that's the 5th, and then I just did an octave of the root note, which is the 1. Okay, and then I'm actually going to move this down now to the key of the track that I'm about to release soon. So it's the key was A flat or G sharp. In this case, I'm just going to remove the 5th because a lot of times what I'll do in my drops is it's pretty layered up, and then sometimes playing the 5th on all my chord stacks, plus with all the basses and everything else I have going on, it can get a little muddy on the low end. So sometimes it really depends, though. You know, it's not just like an always rule. It just kind of depends on if it's muddy in context or not. But generally, I start without it, and then if I want to, I'll add it later, and then I'll see how it sounds with all the other elements. But yeah, so that's the chord stack. And then my next tip would be is something I learned from one of my friends, and then it seemed to be like a reoccurring thing where literally you can, in your arps or your melodies, it's always kind of nice to have like a little fill that leads up to the next melody. So let me give you an example. This is a sound that I got from Set the Sky. We'll start with an ARP, and then I'll write a melody over this after too. This ARP I literally got from you know what? I think it was XLNT or something like that, and they had a podcast with Set the Sky. He was making a track, so I literally just took the same sound. It's Social Outcast from Omnisphere, and then a reverb, and then Decapitator after the reverb to distort the reverb. And then quite an aggressive low cut. In this case, there's not really much in the drop right now, in the case that this would be a drop, but because you brought the distortion so high and with the reverb, there's a lot of low end, and it's going to clash quite a bit if you're especially layered up in the drop. So we're going to go ahead and give an example with an ARP. And this is going to be the same ARP pattern I wrote for my upcoming track. So that's a great example right there. A lot of times what I did is you can lead up to the next melody. So I kind of brought it up since the next ARP melody was kind of going up. So I kind of led the next note up to that melody. And same thing here. I brought it up here as well. And interesting enough, this is also the 1-5, which makes it a safe note. But like I said, it's not like that all the time. It just kind of really depends on how it sounds in context. And this is usually nice because this is right before the G sharp note that we're about to use. You can probably do it again if you want to take it higher. So do that. And maybe like that. Yeah. And well, we can do the same trick to lead it back to here. So you can lead it up or even lead it back down to where the note is. So what we can try is this. Try. Try that again in context with everything. Yes. And I think that's also something I learned from Nat too, where it's like, because this is the 7 of the key, because we're in the key of the A flat or the G sharp, and the chord here we're playing is also the 5th, which has the 7th, that's 3, 7th of the key, and we're just kind of going back to the 1, which makes it a nice little step down. But again, like I said, I don't really know too much theory myself. I just know like some kind of basic stuff, and I would more rely on your ear more than like where does this go in the chord or like what the theory is and stuff. I wouldn't be too worried about it. Good to know, good like tool, but not like everything to use in your production. And just more about the notes you choose and how it sounds is definitely what I would go to, because there's plenty of people that have no theory but have a great ear that have no knowledge of it. So either way can work, you know. Well, pick whatever's best for you. But yeah, basically, to sum it up, having some type of like lead up to the next note is usually really nice in your melodies or your art melodies, and then also kind of like going back down too. Now we can go ahead and go to writing writing a lead with the same idea of like leading up to the next note. So usually when I write my melodies, I always kind of have like a chord playing just so I can it sets the vibe for me. And what I usually do is I honestly always just start with my drop, because that is the most exciting part. And then once I have that down, I know exactly how to make the rest of the track. And it's going to sound freaking amazing because I already got the main part down. So that's what I usually do, but there's no rules to do it. You can start from the intro if that sparks more inspiration for you. Welcome to do that. For me, as a personal thing, is I just start with a drop and then I work my way backwards. And even with my songwriting too, I always start with the chords just so I can get the right vibe set. And then after that, I'll kind of follow it up with the atmospheres and all that. So yeah, let's go ahead and write a melody with this as well. And I don't really think there's like a trick for this melody thing. You know, there's like I was talking about the 1-5, 7 thing, and sometimes using a 1-5 in a different key is not going to sound the same. So it just really depends on how it sounds in context, and I think that's the way to go. And if you feel like you're really not quite there yet with melodies, don't worry. It just takes a bit of time for you to develop the ear. Like production, you can easily learn if someone just shows you it's a bit more linear. But with melody writing, it's the creativity is unlimited. So it's just either you have it or you're not. And the way you get it is just like practicing over and over. It's like riding a bike. First time you ride it, it's not gonna be that good. But the more you practice, the better you get bicycle riding. So same thing with anything, to be honest, in life. But yeah, let's go ahead and write a melody. Oh, let me show you the sound real quick too. This is the square lead in Culture Code's free sample pack in their Sound Horizon Academy Discord, and this lead is in there for you guys. And then I just added some basic reverb and EQ. Nothing really much. And then this is a little, as I was talking about, the little lead up trick that you can potentially do. Basically leading it back to this melody. So you can do like a little cool 16th note little pattern here. And this might work nicely. Yeah. Cool. All right. So next tip number 4, I think, is going to be adding some type of middle saw into your drops. Now, if you do watch my videos, and like I've said in probably a few of my videos, is that you only want to do this if it's needed. If it's not needed in your drop, I wouldn't opt to do this. But generally in my drops, I found that there's always some type of like middle frequency, lower end kind of missing. So the saw makes up a lot for that missing frequency space. So in this case, like I've showed you in my previous tutorial, is that I like to use the Aluminum radio tone, also got from his Lonely walkthrough that he did. So let me show you. This is the radio tone melodies on Omnisphere. I just add a little distortion from the Valve radio. Actually, I barely even did anything. It's like 1% mix. Sometimes I do a little bit more than that, but I guess this time I didn't. And then Decapitator. I just want to be careful of the low end. So a super aggressive low cut. A lot of low ends coming from the distortion. And then some drum busts to bring it back up more in frequencies. And then just some resonant frequency EQs. And then some stereo width, essentially. Vox angle, sound delay, Haas effect. So let me play you the drop real quick. It sounds like this. And then this is without the Aluminum radio tones. So yeah, just basically kind of filling in that middle lower end body area. And you can even do the same thing with a saw, for example. I just like this sound a bit more because the transients pop through a lot more. You can hear it's quite transient. But you can also get away with the saw as well. And technically you can get away with this too. Like my other track that I'm working on with Donatella this time, and actually my student Kenny Fan, we're working on a collaboration. Rather than using this, I use 2 more atmospheres to kind of make up for that space. So like I said, you don't always have to do this. It kind of just depends on what you have in your drop. And I would only use it if this section, if that like frequency spectrum is missing and you want to fill out your drop to make it sound huge, is when I would opt to do this. But yeah, this Nurko saw is what I showed in the Nurko tutorial. I'll just kind of show you briefly real quick what it is. It's very basic 2 saw waves. And then I'll show you the processing. And then what's really going to make it sound more mid-heavy is the vocoder. Yeah. So that's literally the purpose of saw. And then now we're on to tip number 5, which is adding movement to your basses, which is what I always do. So basically how I add movement is you can add a violin distortion, which not only brings it up in frequencies, but also I automated it to kind of go back and forth. So let me show you. And this is, again, my bass I always use, Angry Boss. It's literally a preset that you can find in Serum. Yep. And yeah, so this is without the vinyl distortion. So number 1, the frequencies aren't as brought up, and then there's less movement as well. Yeah. And I did the same thing with this fuzz bass, which is also a bass I think I found on Serum. Same idea. Yeah, like it's so needed. And then let's just see here in context. Let's say we didn't have this movement. Number one is probably going to be a little bit less quiet because we have the distortion is not going to bring up as high in volume, but it's not going to sound the same either. It's definitely less interesting on the low end. Yep, and then another way I wanted to show how to add movement to your basses is you can also do it inside Serum. And I'll just pick out a bass that I like to use quite a bit in the Brighter Day sample pack. It was this one. So a little stagnant again, but we can add some movement by doing a little LFO trick. We can do the asymmetry plus or minus, so we can move both sides. And we can put the LFO onto here. Probably don't want it, it's going to go too wild if we do this, so yes, so we don't want to do that. Maybe, and then we can also change the rate. Yeah. Nice. So those are the ways that I would try to do movement on my basses. Let's go ahead and move to tip number 5, which is, I think a lot of people, myself included, focus a lot on the supersaws and just completely forget about the rest of the elements. So the supersaws are definitely like the body, and they're definitely very important to drop, but so are the atmospheres and so are the rides and crashes. Let's go ahead and hear this drop without any rides or crashes. We'll start with the atmospheres. How about that? And then with the atmospheres. And then, so very, very important. They it's just as essential as the saws. And then, you know, having these rides here, and also effects too. Let's turn off the effects tab. Now you're missing the movement in the high end of your track. So that's something very essential too. So having saws are great, but also having accommodating elements to back up your saws is also just as essential to make the full sounding drop. Now we have tip number 6, which is when I was a bit newer to music production, I always thought making a track like, you know, Nurka, for example, was super complicated. But, you know, a lot of times the intro, the verse, the build up, even the drop sometimes, depending on like what they have, the basic elements are very, very simple actually. I thought like you had to like stack all these layers, and I didn't even know what went into those elements until I got a walkthrough of Disappearing Now, I think that's what it's called. And just like his intro to verse to build up was very simple. It was very basic elements, and he didn't like go crazy on like 10,000 different atmospheres or whatever you know what I mean. But it was just very basic. He had like some atmospheres, he had some instrument layers, he had a bass layer, he had some accommodating, you know, maybe ear candy or something like that. He had the vocal, and like that was really it. You know, sometimes I think we overcomplicate the process and think that, you know, we have to stack 20 to 50 different layers on the intro when you might just take like 5 to like 6. Like it doesn't really require that much, you know. So I'll kind of just briefly break down what I have in this intro here.
It feels like I'm just waking up from.
Like it's really simple. So all I really have is just like the drop vocal chop, phony cued basically. We're using the FAB filter, and then I literally have a guitar playing. I think I have this frozen keyscape. Yep, guitar, pads, and then the atmospheres. Yep, and that's literally it. And then eventually after that, we have some effects that transition over into the into the verse. Then we add some percussions and the vocal for variation.
It feels like I'm just waiting.
And then the more you build up to the track, either A, you can have a little duck in energy in your chorus, and then bring it back up in the build up, or you can continue just slowly building up that energy until the drop to make it your biggest place. Because I mean, I've heard some tracks too where the dynamic contrast in the tracks don't add up to the buildup, where it's like it sounds huge in the buildup, and then all of a sudden like the drop just doesn't deliver, you know. So generally you want to have like a nice indicates that you do have just a basic foundation of building up your track in terms of energy and dynamic contrast slowly, and then the drop being the biggest part. Then you slowly just add on elements for variation, and then the buildup is going to be like a little bit bigger than your other part, but it's not as big as a drop, and you just slowly build it up until the biggest part. So in this case, just to add more variation, I had, like, for example, drums, maybe phony cue drums, like a bass and the vocal come in. And then the next part, I might just layer up the drums so they sound a bit bigger, and then just stack more elements after we transition. So I had the same elements from my verse, but I added on some more elements. So I added the clap, and I added this little cool pluck that Amadeus made. And then to add more energy, you're going to notice the snare coming after. And also the pluck is also opening up. Everything's opening up, the risers, the FX. And the drop being the biggest part. So yeah, it's very, very simple. I literally just added some more kicks. I just added some more build-up drums. I had the pluck opening up, and I had the effects start rising up, and that's how I added more energy and variation to the track. And then next up is stereo imaging, or making your drops sound more wide, and even your track is I use the Ozone 9 imager on my drop stack here, and I have bands on 7,000, 2,000, and around 300. And usually, or generally, the higher in frequency you go, the more you can spread it. So the higher band, I have the frequency of 40, 22, half of that, and I don't really want to add stereo width to like the subzone. This is what it sounds like without it. So much more spread when you do that trick, and even on my master too, I do the same thing as well. So let me kind of just show you, but not as aggressive though on the master. It's a little bit more light, but I can kind of show you what it does on my track. There's actually a whole entire mastering train on here as well, but I'll play the intro for you. More wide. And then lastly, I wanted to go over vocoders. Those adds so much, it adds more energy and also fills out your chorus quite a bit more when you add these vocoders. So let me kind of show you without the vocoders.
Let's just take a step across the border, make our way the hell out of LA. Just take my
Yeah, I just use vocoder. I just set it to MIDI mode, and then I just picked the preset. I think this wasn't even the preset, it just was on this, and I thought it sounded really nice. And then I basically just linked it to the vocal synth and vocoder group with the MIDI. And then I also added a bunch of stereo width as well, and it messed with the gate a little bit. And then I did the same thing with vocoder 2. And sometimes I even add this like lower formant vocal part. EQ too, because it does have quite a bit low end, and then some more stereo width, or the Haas effect essentially, to make it more wide. But this case I didn't need to do it because Monica Santucci already sent over a lower octave, so if you stack both of those, it's just going to clash. So There's one or the other if you want to do in that case. All right, guys, that's going to be it for this video. Please give it a thumbs up if you did enjoy the video. Subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't yet, and hit the bell notification symbol so you know when my next video goes live. Follow me on my Instagram and join the Discord server if you want to join a like-minded community of other music producers. But yeah, that's going to be it, guys. Thank you so much again for watching, guys. And definitely stay tuned for that new Monica Santucci track, or the track that I have with Jasper and Monica Santucci, coming up very soon. All right, guys, much love. Peace out.